Hi ladies, welcome to Theology 360. I'm looking forward to teaching you this summer semester. My name is Mrs. Julie Van Cat, and I am a full-time theology teacher at Mercy High School. Next school year will be my 25th year teaching at Mercy and my 27th year teaching in general. All those years I've been teaching theology. For the past 10 years, I've also been an adjunct professor at College of St. Mary. I have been mostly teaching online, but I have taught some in-person classes there as well. Also, I am an adjunct professor at Creighton University. In addition to that, I have 5 kids. My oldest daughter is Rose, and she is 25. And then we have Hannah, who's 23, Maggie, who's 21, and she's in college at UNO, Molly, who's 16, just forgot her age, but she's 16, and she is going to be a junior at Mercy High School. And then my son Jake is an 8th grader. He's 13. He's at Holy Cross. So you can see that my life is fairly busy, and in addition to that, I love traveling, and I love spending time with my husband, Dan. We've been married for 26 years. I want to talk, obviously, a little bit about the class in general and then about this week's work. So basically, this is a 6-week class, and I know it will be at times pretty intense, but this would be as though you came to class every day for 6 weeks. And so you will need to set aside time every day for this class, and there'll be a lot of reading. You're going to need 2 textbooks. One of them is called Women in the New Testament by Bonnie Thurston. The other one is called Her Story, and it's by Barbara McAfee. And those books are both listed on the syllabi and also at the bookstore at College of St. Mary. We are going to start with the book called Women in the New Testament. And at the beginning, the very first day, there's a PowerPoint that goes through the important women of the Old Testament. I want you to look through that PowerPoint, and if there are women that you're not familiar with, then find their Bible stories and read up on what they did in the Bible. But the PowerPoint slide does kind of describe each of them too. The most important woman from the Old Testament would be Eve, and Eve is obviously in the creation account. And as Catholics, we don't really take those creation accounts as 100% literal, but rather look at the religious truth, or what God wants us to know about God from those stories. So in the creation myth about Adam and Eve, she is the first woman, and with her husband, they bring sin into the world by eating a fruit from this tree that God told them not to eat from. And the different early translations of this story show Eve as sort of a temptress and a seductress, and as kind of manipulating Adam into eating from this fruit. And so as a result, the kind of impression of women was that we were seductresses and sinful, and that we were manipulative, and that men needed to be somewhat worried about us. And as a result, I think women were kind of held down and kept back, and we still see some of the remnants of that translation today. Before I get too far, I do want to describe to you the Bible in general. Reading the Bible is much like walking into a library. And I say that because if you go into a library, you'll find that the books are organized by genre or type or topic. And they're written by a bunch of different authors at a bunch of different times for different, audiences. And the same could be said for the books in the Bible. They're all written at different times for different people, by different people. Most of the time we have no idea who actually physically wrote them. And they kind of help you see the way people thought and the way people behaved and the life kind of traditions of those people. And so the Bible, when you open it at the book of Genesis, this isn't necessarily the first book that was written. The Bible is not organized chronologically, but rather organized by the type of writing. And so even though Genesis is there first, it's probably not the oldest piece of writing. Actually, we think the book of Genesis was written by several different authors and kind of put together much later. Anyway, so when it comes to those Old Testament women, please try to find their stories in the Bible. A simple Google search of them will help you find where you can see these stories in the Bible. You're also going to read the first 4 chapters of Bonnie Thurston's book in the first week of class. And so that will give you some background information to what women were kind of treated like and what their lifestyles were like based on what type of woman they were. And you'll also get to read a little bit about St. Paul and some of the Gospels. So it talks about some of Paul's letters in the beginning because those were written first. So Bonnie Thurston's book is kind of organized more chronologically with the books that were written first. And again, the Bible is not like that. So anyway, you'll read about Paul. You'll also read about some of the Gospels. And just for the record, we believe Mark's Gospel was written first and John's Gospel was written last. So the chapter you'll read this week is about those two Gospels. Next week, you'll read about the Gospel of Luke and the Lucan works, but you will never read a chapter on Matthew's Gospel. And I think that's primarily because Matthew focused more on men and important people of the time and was really geared toward a Jewish audience to try to help them believe that Jesus was actually the Messiah. Mark and John's Gospels were written more to, Gentiles, Jews, and just in general the whole Christian church. One topic that will be important for you to kind of grasp is the difference between a passage that is prescriptive rather than one that's descriptive. And so I want to describe the difference between that. So a descriptive passage would be one that simply is describing the way things were at the time. A prescriptive passage would, on the other hand, describe how the author believes that things should be for all time. And so a big debate with people reading the Bible is always whether something is simply descriptive or if it's prescriptive. And if it's prescriptive, then it would mean that the message written thousands of years ago should apply to us today. So as an example, you'll read about a passage that says women should be silent in church. What we don't know, that was one of Paul's letters, and what we don't know is why he wrote it. Were there some loudmouth women who were causing problems in the specific church he was writing to, or did he mean for all time that women should be silent in church? And of course, this is an ongoing debate. There's no easy answer to that, but you're going to have to decide whether you think some of Paul's writings are more descriptive or prescriptive and make a case for that. So make sure you understand that. So I do want to describe some of the generalities of the class. Each week you should watch one of my videos, which this is one of them. And I'll kind of overview the week. I'll overview some of the homework for the week and talk about some of the bigger things. But of course, to do the reading is what will really help you be successful in the class. Each week or with each chapter or like section, you'll find a PowerPoint that kind of coincides. So I highly recommend that as you read, you take notes along with the PowerPoint, and that those PowerPoint slides will help you when you go to take the quizzes and tests. Every week you'll participate in discussions, so whenever that happens, you should post your response to the discussion question by the time that's detailed in the syllabus. And then you need to comment on one other person's post within the next 24, 48 hours, depending on what it says in the syllabi. So when you write your own post, be detailed, reference the text, make sure if you use any outside sources that you cite them, make sure that you read through it and that you make sure it's making sense grammatically, that it's correct, that there's no misspellings. And then when you comment on another post, make sure that you're specific about what you liked about it. Don't just say, oh, good post, nice comments. Be specific about what you like. So in the class, you'll participate in discussions. You'll do a lot of reading. You'll hopefully take notes. You will take a quiz or a test at the end of each week. The first 2 weeks, you'll take a quiz. The third and sixth week, you'll take a test. And then the fourth and fifth week, you'll take quizzes. So you also are going to write a research paper. That research paper is due near the end of the second week. So you're going to have to decide quickly what you want to write the research paper about. This paper will deal with the Virgin Mary, who was the mother of Jesus. And you'll either look at doctrine or teachings that we have about Mary, or you can look at some of the devotions we have to Mary, which would include the Rosary or Novena or the Chaplet of Divine Mercy. And you could also research one of Mary's apparitions. This means that Mary has appeared to people through the centuries and that She had certain messages, and these have always been really mystical, kind of extraordinary sort of appearances. So you could research a few of them or one of them and tell that story and kind of what Mary's message was. And if you look near the end of the syllabus, there's a bunch of questions to answer depending on which of those topics you pick. And also there are rubrics at the end that tell you how I will grade them. So please do put some time right away into thinking about what you want to write about and get started working on that. And then always email me with any questions. You'll also write a second paper. That's a reaction paper to a movie. And I've listed several movies that you can watch. And you simply watch the movie and then react to it. And then you will do a presentation where you videotape yourself presenting on an issue that kind of affects women negatively today in our world. So there's a bunch of topics and you'll pick your own topic for that. So I think that's enough information for the first week. Please be in contact. It's always hard with an online class. It always feels to me like I've really communicated myself well through the videos and through the syllabus, and then people often have questions. Please don't be afraid to ask those. Also, I really recommend that you stay on top of the homework and even work ahead if you can. Thank you.